All right, good evening. Welcome to my channel. So this is a new channel. I do have another channel, a YouTube channel, but that one, I'm a little bit concerned about some of the video quality on some of those. So, I decided I wanted to make this channel a little bit different. My interest as a Pennsylvania voter, to me, is become extremely important. I grew up in the state of Massachusetts, where voting is a lot different, where political parties are a lot different, rules are a lot different. And I grew up, somewhat apolitical, but as I got older, I grew to the left. I voted for Barack Obama in 2008. It was the first year that I was able to vote. And in 2012, I did not vote. It's probably around 2012, where I started to convert to, the right, I guess. That being said, I think that I take an unbiased view to most issues by looking at objectively, based on my opinions, based on facts. There's been many opinions that have changed, many views that have changed over the course of the last few years. One I'd say that it's changed the most, would be the legalization of marijuana. I was very much against it. Now I'm very much for it. And I'd say gay marriage as well. I was very much against it, and now I'm very much for it. And there's different reasons for that. Maybe in this video, I'll get to some of those views, but this video is not about my views. Voters of Pennsylvania, this is for you. This is important for you. This will be the first of a couple videos that we make. We're going to talk about, I think, the most consequential race first. Don't get me wrong. The governor's race for our state is probably more consequential. I just think that that one is a little less likely. Let's put it this way. Mastriano, to me, is, I'll admit, more of an extremist than I would like for the governor of this state. I mean, I believe I'll vote for him, and we'll get to why when I make that video, but that's for a different time. What you can expect is, look, I'm not going to say that I'm not right-leaning. I'm not going to say that I'm not biased, okay? I'm not biased towards Dr. Oz. I'll tell you my honest view going into this video. My honest view going into this video, making this video, before I researched both of these men, was that I would vote for Dr. Oz because he was the candidate, but I don't support him. Lesser of two evils was 100% what I thought. I thought that he was the worst candidate. And as I look deeper and deeper into it, again, some of my opinions start to change. Okay, but again, grew up as, somewhat apolitical, turned to the left. Now I've become sort of more right over the last couple of years. That being said, I'm going to try to take an unbiased view towards some of these issues. I should say I'm going to look at these issues honestly based on what the candidates have said in the past and what they've done in the past. Okay, so first, who are we talking about? Well, I think that we all know we're talking about Dr. Oz, who's running as a Republican candidate, and John Fetterman, who's running as a Democrat candidate. Okay, so both these two men, they have a very drastically different history. Okay, but there are a lot of similarities too that I don't think are talked about very often. Okay, so we're going to go into some of those. Okay, so first let's talk about Dr. Mehmet Oz. Okay, he's 62 years old. He graduated from Harvard University with his BA, and then from the University of Pennsylvania with both his medical, with his MD and his MBA. In his career, he's done a lot of things, and we know him obviously as a TV personality. And I think that's part of this, it's a little bit unfortunate for him in politics that we know him as that. He didn't have the same sort of, calm demeanor and, caring demeanor as like Ben Carson when he first started running. Well, that he went a little bit kind of wild with some of the things that he said, but he was a TV personality. But before he was a TV personality, he was a business owner, a medical doctor, a heart surgeon, and a professor. So he's done a lot of things in his life. And I think that, we need to talk about some of those things. So he spent 2 years in the Turkish army to keep his dual citizenship. He graduated magna cum laude, and I hope I say that right. I get kicked out of high school. I'm not going to go through a lot of my history. My history is definitely different than Dr. Oz's history, but I can appreciate it for some reason. So he graduated at Harvard, played football, and was captain of the men's water polo team at Harvard. Was awarded the Captain's Athletic Award for leadership in college, and was class president and student body president during his medical school. He was the recipient of the Blakemore Award for Research, has won 9 Daytime Emmy Awards, and has a star on the Walk of Fame. Okay, so the last two to me are the least relevant, but I want to talk a little bit about Dr. Oz. Okay, so when I was going into this is maybe the biggest thing that changed for me. Going into this, I said, okay, this guy is kind of, he's not like every American. Okay. How can he relate to us? How can we possibly, accept this guy, knowing that he's worth, hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever he's worth. He doesn't know what it's like to struggle in the streets. He doesn't know what it's like right now in Philadelphia, in Pittsburgh, and Harrisburg. What's he know about this? So that was my first view, and I'll admit that maybe that's important to an extent. Okay, but I looking at it from a second view. Okay, looking at it again, I started to think, all right, since when do we tear people down for their success? Okay, so a little bit more about Oz. Oz's parents moved here from Turkey. Okay, now that might sound rough. Turkey obviously is a rough country, but they were pretty well off, right? His father had graduated from some prestigious college over in Turkey, came over here, and I believe was a doctor, but had a good income, became a business owner or practice owner, and treated his kids well. He was one of a few kids. He worked for everything he had, though. Seemingly, he's always worked throughout his entire career. So he goes to Harvard. He gets in there on his own merit. I'm sure that he got help from his father, but he goes there, and then he goes to the University of Pennsylvania. And that's his first experience in Pennsylvania. A lot of people think, well, Dr. Oz, this is a New York, New Jersey kind of guy. He grew up in Ohio, I believe, Central Ohio. So he's not, at least growing up. Now he's 62 years old, but at least for his first, what they call his formative years, he was in Ohio. And then he went out to Boston, obviously, for Harvard University, and then went to University of Pennsylvania. Now, it seems like in all of his college experience, he took on leadership roles. And I think it's important to recognize that, right? So, going and training with the Turkish army, obviously he wasn't on the front lines of whatever war Turkey was in a couple of years ago, I guess several years ago, but he was at least training with the Turkish army. Okay. He was taking up all these leadership positions in college, all right, doing all of these things. And then he goes and he becomes a medical doctor, and a damn good one too. He performed heart surgery on Joe Torre of the Yankees' brother. He had done invented a bunch of different things, right? So he would research and invent different products with different people and whatnot. So he's an inventor, a business owner. He's developed numerous businesses. As far as I saw, in my research, every business he has touched has been very successful. So he's exhibited leadership in his entire, life. And then he takes the TV world by storm as well. And I think a lot of people like myself see him as, this is just some Hollywood guy or whatever. But to me, I look at it like we didn't admonish Donald Trump for his Hollywood. And we held him up as, okay, this is different because he is from outside of the norm. He is this TV personality, whatever. And so when we look at Dr. Oz different because he was on Oprah and because he's worked with, sort of left-wing people in the past. And so I think that we look at him a lot different than we look at Donald Trump. But I take a different stance with it. To me, I just look at him as someone that was almost more successful. More successful than Donald Trump. This is a guy who won award after award while he was on television, but also did so much more too. And so I look at it almost like, why would he not be a better version of Donald Trump? If anything, we should be concerned about his politics being in Hollywood for so long. But all the things that he's done, he's shown success in every way possible as an American. As a first generation, I guess, immigrant, or would be second generation or whatever. A kid who grew up in this strict fundamentalist Muslim family, who sort of broke from that, and he's still a Muslim gentleman. He's more secular now. He's been a father, he's been a husband for years to his wife. He seemingly did everything right, and so why are we holding that against him? Right. So that's the way that I started thinking. And I hope that you think the same way in this way. Look, I'm not telling you to vote for the guy. And a lot of you probably don't like him. You probably listen to this now going, oh yeah, but he's, this and that or whatever. And I struggle to find the words that don't begin with, or don't, sound like D-bag or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say them, but I challenge you to think of it a little bit differently. If this was your son, okay, would you be proud of him? All right. If Dr. Oz was, instead of, this guy running for Senate, if he was your son running for Senate, would you be proud of him? Because I think I would, right? If my son or daughter goes and does all of these tremendous things, then I'm going to be pretty damn proud of him. Okay. And so I don't think that we should hold it against him that he's done great things in his life. Right. And we'll get to the criticisms of him as well, too. Don't worry. So that those just haven't come yet. John Fetterman, on the other hand, had a much different upbringing. Okay. So he's 53 years old. He graduated from Albright College with a BA from UConn for his MBA. And then he went to Harvard University for like an MPP. I forget exactly what that stands for, but basically it's like a public service kind of, degree or whatever. After that, he never had a career. Okay. So this is the thing that we got to talk about John Fetterman, because much different than Dr. Oz. Okay. And I get it that I'm not speaking with, I'm personally, I have investment in this. Okay. Because I'm not a big fan of John Fetterman as a person after looking into him. Now, here's how I went into things with John Fetterman. Okay. Everybody that I know loves John Fetterman. Okay. Everybody that I work with and everything. Like I know people that have spoken on stage with John Fetterman. They're running for different things in different small communities and stuff like that. So I've seen John Fetterman speak. I had an appreciation for John Fetterman. My stance toward John Fetterman before this video, no lie, was this guy does not hold my politics, but much like Bernie Sanders, I respect his convictions and I respect that he has done a lot in his life. Okay. But then I start to look at it and I go, okay, this guy, he's 9 years younger than Dr. Oz. Okay. Let's talk about what he's done. He grew up in a rich family in York, PA. Okay. Outside of York, PA. He kind of slid through high school. His father took care of him, paid for all this stuff. He never held a real job when he was a teenager. Eventually, he got into Albright College and graduated with his BA. Then he went to UConn, got his MBA. Okay, and respect that and whatnot. His father, I guess, was more right wing or whatever. He went to did this Harvard University program. I don't think he actually went to Harvard, but he did this program. So then he moves to this town of Braddock or whatever, outside Pittsburgh. And when he moves to this town, he works a little bit in insurance, but he never really takes on a career. Okay. He ends up running for mayor after working with youth and stuff like that. And that's to be respected, no doubt, but he never really had a career outside of government. And he goes and becomes the mayor of Braddock and is the mayor of Braddock for 15 years or whatever. And this entire time, the whole time while he's the mayor of Braddock and before that, okay, up until he's 49 years old, his father literally pays for everything. I mean, his father's giving him like 55 grand a year or more. Okay. While he's the mayor of Braddock, and because the position doesn't pay very much, but it's a part-time job. It's a part-time job. It's a very small town. There's not much that he has to do. And we'll talk about what he did while he was the mayor of Braddock. Okay. So the other thing that I thought about John Fetterman too, because everybody says it, is that this place, Braddock, PA, got drastically better under John Fetterman. I mean, you think he's now the lieutenant governor. You'd think that it got drastically better, but it didn't. He had a lot of problems in Braddock. Okay, so first, since 2010, now, admittedly, I couldn't find numbers, and I'm sure if I searched deep and wide, then I could have found some, but I did my best. I could only spend one night gathering information and reading up about these two guys. So I did get the stats from 2010 and up, though. Keep in mind, he was the mayor until 2019. Okay, so since 2010, crime rate in Braddock has risen dramatically. Okay, it's gone up by 3 times the national average. Okay, so it started off pretty much at the national average back in 2010, and then it just rose every year. Okay, now it's starting to decline, but he's also not the mayor anymore as well. The population of Braddock also went down by nearly 30%. So the thing that he had set out to do, which was breathe life back into Braddock, PA, he was a drastic failure at it. It went down by nearly 30% from 2010 to 2019 when he left office. Okay, so you're talking about 2,200 people to 1,700 people over the course of just that 9 years. Now think about that for a second. Okay, can you imagine for a second? Now, I know California has problems, but can you imagine if 30% of the population left California? Okay, if 30%, look at your town that you live in now. Chances are, if you're seeing this, then I probably showed up at your door and knocked on it. Think about the town that you live in right now, whether it's Mechanicsburg or it's Harrisburg or it's wherever, York. Okay, imagine if all of a sudden over the course of the next 9 years, 30% of the population disappeared. Dwellix.com, which is a website that scores schools, okay, scored the highest school in Braddock at 26.5 out of 100. All right, the other schools, I think the elementary school is like a 31, the middle school is like a 28 or something like that. It was right around the same as the high school. Fetterman didn't get along at all with the city council. When you hear the things that they have to say about him, none of them are good. And he barely attended any city council meetings. That was part of the reason why they had such problems with him. Now, he billed himself as a savior of the town of Braddock. Okay, so he billed himself as there wasn't much saving going on. The biggest achievement that he did was he worked with a celebrity chef, I forget the guy's name, you can look it up, to open up a restaurant in Braddock. It's partially government funded, and part of it was funded by I think GoFundMe or Kickstarter. It opened in 2017. In 2020, it took $190,000 in PPP loans to stay open during the COVID-19 pandemic. And keep in mind too, I know that it wasn't normal for restaurants, okay, but a lot of restaurants stayed open because their business, they were able to do business, especially in Pennsylvania. I mean, we're all familiar with Pennsylvania, and you look at your favorite restaurants, most of them stayed open through COVID-19, and a lot of them didn't even take PPP money, which, look, it's fine that they did. A lot of businesses took the PPP loans, and that's fine. But the restaurant closed down a year later in 2021. So whenever this opened, the idea was that this would bring a bunch of jobs to Braddock. Now, Braddock's a town of 2,200 people. Well, less at the time this opened, probably around 1,700 people, but still 1,700 people. I don't know how many adults are there, but how many people are really going to be employed at a restaurant? By the way, I forget the name of the place, but it was a weird name. It was like a road stop or something like that. It was not an appealing name. If I was driving by it, I would not stop there to eat. That's for sure. It was always like, the one, well, I'm not getting into all that. I'll just say it. The restaurant Quaker Steak and Lube. I never understood that. It doesn't sound good. It never sounded appealing to me at all. I've never tried it before, never want to try it, but man, I would drive by that place going, that just does not sound very good to me. Anyways, you can judge for yourself, who was more successful. But again, you have one guy, all right, I'll point out that succeeded at every goal that he made for himself that we know about. I mean, this is probably a goal for him now. And again, you think about it right now, what is his goal in running for office? Okay. I don't know. I mean, we could probably look that up or whatever, and you can believe him or you cannot. My guess would be that it's I have no problem with this, by the way, but my guess is that just like John Fetterman, Dr. Oz wants to add to his legacy. Okay. I assume that every politician is not doing it for the right reasons. Okay. I assume that every politician has some sort of dual reason for wanting to go into politics. Right? I'm not saying that they're not at all pure, but I always think that they're never purely pure. And that's fine. I think the same thing about John Fetterman. To me, it's like this. If you got someone that always is successful at everything that they do, and they strive to be successful, and they already have a ton of money, so they don't need a ton of money. They don't need to go make millions of dollars while they're in office. They don't need to take money from special interests and things like that. And that person has succeeded in everything that they've done. And their goal becomes to add to their own legacy to show that they are successful. I'll take that person every day in office. I'll take that person every day over the person that has consistently failed at everything that they've done and has had to have help from their parents. We can all resonate with, most of us parents anyways can resonate with us wanting our kids to go explore their passions. I mean, and for us wanting to find what is successful for them, to define that for themselves. We all want that for our children, but do you really want your child to be living off of you until they're 50 years old? Right? I mean, but that's what John Fetterman did. And so I don't know what his interests are. I guess his appeal is that he's not worth a ton of money and stuff like that, or whatever. To me, that makes him more susceptible to the BS. And when we go through their policy prescriptions, I think that you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so pros and cons. I'm just going to go through some of the questions about Dr. Oz. So the first question about Dr. Oz was, does he understand the average American's plight? Okay, and so I wrote the question here, and I posed this question to you. Since when do we start despising people for their success operating within the American dream? So as far as I'm concerned, Dr. Oz has been really good at winning the American dream, at doing exactly what all of us want to do, what we want our kids to aspire to do. And so again, when I look at it from that view, at first I look at this candidate where I'm like, man, this guy is weak. He doesn't understand us. He's not like us average people. But I mean, isn't he just like us average people? Doesn't he just have what we strive for, a lot of us. And why would we hate that? Right? So he's not the most middle-class candidate. And his ad about in the grocery store, whatever, was really, again, debaggy, but get beyond that for a second. He worked through everything that he had to, worked through more plight than anybody that I know anyways, and became more successful than anybody I know. As someone that is a success story, how can I hate that? I was the worst kind of addict that you can imagine, in the worst place, depths of my destruction. I was, in the worst place in my life when I found a company that gave me an opportunity and chance, and I worked hard to become very, very successful in that company. Dr. Oz just did a better job at that than me. Why can I hate him for that? Okay, so the next one is Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz is a carpetbagger that doesn't understand PA. Okay, and I hope I got that term right, but carpetbagger means that someone that is not from that state that goes into that state to run for elections. To me, I look at it like, here's the way, as someone that moved from Massachusetts down to PA, okay? Now, albeit many years ago compared to Dr. Oz, but as someone, I love the Pennsylvania culture. What does it matter whether or not I'm from here originally, so whether or not I run for office, right? Let's say, for example, I went up to Massachusetts right now. I am less like the people of Massachusetts than I am like the people of Pennsylvania. Why would it make sense for me to run for office in a place like Massachusetts, a place that I can't stand, right? I love the freedom that Pennsylvania tries to be, okay? Tries to attain, all right? I love that freedom. I love what the state stands for, okay? I love the cities of the state, especially Pittsburgh. I love Pittsburgh. But most importantly, I love everything between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, right? And so if Dr. Oz really does care about this state, who am I to hate him for that? Who am I to call him a carpetbagger and to not appreciate the fact that he wants to move to the state and run for office in this state? So he grew up in Ohio. He traveled a lot for school. He spent a lot of time abroad in Turkey. Is this guy really from anywhere? Now, he eventually moved to New Jersey and purchased homes in multiple states. He's got a $25 million mansion. He's got a $5 million mansion. I don't hate him for that. Good for him. I am extremely happy for his success. Why would I be anything but? Bernie Sanders owns 3 houses. Good for him. I'm happy for him. I hope that someday in my life, I can do the same thing, right? In 2020, he moved to PA and he's voted in PA elections since then. So as I write here, I don't care where you're from. As long as you uphold this state's values and the residents of this state's values, the people that are watching this video right now, if I am from Pennsylvania, right, and I know this state through and through, if I have it tattooed on my arm, okay, but I have all different views than you, do you really want me winning office? Do you really want me, if my policy prescriptions are known to destroy, okay, destroy cities, states, whatever, but I am from PA and I understand the American people, I understand Pennsylvanians, I understand the working class, why would you want to elect me just because I am the same as you, right? In some ways, okay? The last one, C, is Dr. Oz isn't a real Republican. I can't pretend to know what's in his mind, right? And that's what I write down here. What I can say is that I made the same criticism about Donald Trump. When Donald Trump ran, I voted for Ted Cruz. When Donald Trump won, I voted for Donald Trump, but I said up until the day he was elected, I believe even that day, I'm like, you know what? If Hillary Clinton wins, maybe she's more qualified for the job. I can't believe I said that. That's crazy. But I mean, Donald Trump had me hating the Republican Party. You kidding me? I was like, man, I miss Barack Obama. And I am as conservative as they come. I really am. But that's the thing, is that I misjudged Donald Trump. And I don't want to make that same mistake again. I don't know if Dr. Oz is ultra right or far MAGA, blah, 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 blah. All I know is that he's more conservative than John Fetterman and better than John Fetterman on the issues that I care about. And that's what you have to answer with your vote. John Fetterman. Okay, the first criticism of him is, has he ever had a job? Now, I'm sure that he's had jobs here or there, but he's never had a career. His dad has had to take care of him his entire life, and I think that I answered that already. So I'm not going to keep beating that down. But while he was playing, part-time mayor in Braddock, his dad was funding all of his crap. He owns like 8 properties in Braddock. He is not a poor man, and he's from a very rich family. Here's a big one. Did John Fetterman commit a hate crime? The answer is yes, actually. I mean, based on the left's notion of a hate crime, the question that I have is that if I did the same thing, okay, if let's say, for example, those people that shot and killed Ahmaud Arbery did everything that day except for kill him, would they have committed a hate crime? Every leftist out there would say yes. Let's say that they didn't end up shooting Ahmaud Arbery, but the same thing hit the news. Okay, so in 2013, a couple of kids were lighting off fireworks in this area that John Fetterman lived in, and Braddock in general is a black area, largely black area. John Fetterman assumed that he heard gunshots, and he chased down a jogger in his car and held him at gunpoint. He reportedly pointed the gun at the guy's chest or kid's chest or whatever, and loaded the gun and then pointed at his face. The young man was black. Okay. He went as far as to lie and say the guy was wearing a mask, and so he didn't know that what his race was. The guy said that's complete BS, complete BS. And I believe the guy. Why would you be wearing, I mean, it's proven that the guy's some innocent jogger. Why would you be wearing a mask as an innocent jogger? And why would you lie about it? He never got charged with a crime. Why would he lie about it? Fetterman has every reason to lie about that. And finally, is John Fetterman healthy enough to run for Senate? I mean, to be honest, I can't say no. Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein are in the office currently. Okay, Mitch McConnell and people like that can barely walk are in office currently. Right? Dianne Feinstein is literally, her own party is like, ma'am, you have to leave. You're almost 90 years old. Our president can't even hold together 5 words. Okay, so I can't say he's too unhealthy to run for Senate, and I'm not his doctor. I will say this, in 2017, Fetterman was diagnosed with arterial fibrillation, I think I'm saying that right, an irregular heart rhythm, which is pretty common, along with a decreased heart pump, which he did not make known to his constituents. And that's the big problem that I have. Nobody found out about this until 2022, okay? In addition to this, he did nothing to take care of himself at the time. He lost some weight, but then he gained a lot of that weight back. And in June 2019, he collapsed while presiding over the state Senate. This was waved off as him just being overheated. Now, maybe he was. But in May of 2022, he suffered a severe stroke and was fitted with a pacemaker. Now, the doctors say he's going to recover at some point, but right now he is having trouble speaking. And you can see this in the little short speeches that he's giving. He's also denied Dr. Oz the 3 or 5 or whatever debates that he should have had. It's not fair that Dr. Oz does not get to debate John Fetterman, and that we as the American people, the Pennsylvanians, that we don't get to see these two talk about their policy issues together. That is not fair. It is not fair. To me alone, if you will not debate an opponent, I will not give you my vote. Bottom line. Now, I don't care who you are, Democrat or Republican. I will sit here and admit that I would probably not vote for the Democrat. If Dr. Oz was like, I'm not debating John Fetterman, I wouldn't go vote for John Fetterman because of that, but I would not vote. I am not going to vote for someone that can't defend their positions, regardless of the reason. Okay, let's talk about their views on the issue. So Dr. Oz on the economy. So we know much less about Dr. Oz's political views because he just hasn't been in politics. I mean, we really only have the last year or two where he's really been outspoken about politics, understandably. I mean, he's working in Hollywood, right? His show ended in January, I think, of this year. Dr. Oz is seemingly pro-business, though. He supported the opening of businesses during COVID-19. He has been a business owner, and his father was a business owner. He's also pro-fracking and pro-America first when it comes to jobs. He thinks that products should be made here in America. On crime, Dr. Oz is pro-police, and he supports the cash bail system. He's anti-crime and supports the incarceration of violent criminals, which you might say, well, obviously, duh, but we'll talk about what John Fetterman thinks in a second. And I think that's much more important than what Dr. Oz thinks, because I think that you'll find Dr. Oz's, policy prescriptions and views on issues much more palatable than John Fetterman's. Weed, he's pro-medical but not legalization. I do have a problem with that, but I guess this has been the Republican line. They're just a little bit slow to the uptake. Just make it legal. Who cares? Who cares? This is where I'm at with it, okay? For so long, I was against making it legal in any way. And then I said, wait, if it's medicine, if we're letting these prescription drug companies make the worst medicines in the world to feed and kill our kids, then why would we not make weed, which is much, much safer than those things, legal. Makes no sense. Okay, medically, anyways. And again, when it comes to legalization, it's a business for the state. That's my big thing. It's a business for the state. Creates a lot of jobs, creates a lot of cash flow, a lot of state tax, so on and so forth. All right, LGBTQ rights. And this is important, I know, for a lot of people. For me, this is not what I vote based on, but I understand. I am pro-gay marriage. Dr. Oz is pro-gay marriage. Dr. Oz does not believe that we should allow trans athletes to compete against their chosen gender. I think that's important, okay? The whole, whatever, Leah Thomas thing, where he was going out dressed as a female, okay? And I say that because he hadn't changed anything, took hormones, but didn't change anything else about his body. And just destroys the female competition while changing and watching the girls in the locker room change and stuff like that, being in the locker room with the females on his team. That's a problem for me. Dr. Oz is against that. He does not believe in banning hormone treatment for kids, but he doesn't support the use. Now, to me, that's playing it a little bit, halfway. I don't like that very much, but better than John Fetterman, which we'll get to in a second. Dr. Oz is pro-second. Remember, he has his concealed carry license in PA. And on immigration, from a family of immigrants, Dr. Oz supports legal immigration greatly, but is opposed to an open border policy, which I think is important. More important is John Fetterman's stances. We know a lot about these because he's said a lot about them. To be honest with you, think about it for a second. The mayor of Braddock should not care that much about a lot of these issues while he was the mayor of Braddock. But this is a guy who, he had his opinions. He has his opinions. Abortion. He believes that all abortion should be legal up to birth. The Democrat Party in general, and I understand you might be pro-choice, okay? Even as a conservative or Republican or whatever, you might be pro-choice or you think you're pro-choice or whatever, okay? And I get it because I think the pro-life movement has done a bad job of taking a very hard stance against abortion. Now, I am very, very pro-life, but I think it's important to look at nuance in the views. And I don't want to see, there's things that we can do that meet halfway. All right. So first of all, all Americans think that anyone that I've ever met anyways, in every poll I've seen, that the life of the mother should never be sacrificed for an unborn child. And I agree 100%. And Dr. Oz agrees as well. And that will never be an issue. I've never seen any state that has said, oh no, you have to let the spouse. I mean, that would be so asinine. There'd be no reason at all to do that. It's insane. Okay. That being said, a lot of people get caught up on the rape stuff and stuff like that. And I get it. It's a big issue. I don't mean to just say, oh, get caught up on that. No, I get it's a big issue. And that's something that I think can be debated. I think the importance there is that, how do we know that this happened, right? How do we know that it's not abortion clinics could just use that as a reason to give abortions to anybody. And so we need some sort of level of verification. Now, maybe this is a way to get people to report their rapes, more often. And I think that would be a beautiful thing to be able to lock up more rapists. Absolutely. That'd be great. Right. And something that we should explore. Bottom line is this, is that Fetterman and a lot of Democrats go to the extreme. They are now not just in support of late-term abortion. They think it's a good thing. They want no restrictions on abortion whatsoever. And I think that most of us can agree that some level of restriction is important. Most of us can agree that. I mean, do you really want a third trimester abortion? Probably not, right? I mean, you're talking about a baby that a lot of times could be born outside of the womb, survive outside the womb. And this guy would like to abort those babies. The big one though is Fetterman's stance on crime. And I'm going to go through this a little bit more in a second. So I'm going to go through a couple things here, and then we're going to get back to that in a second. I have an article that I want to read you because it's extremely important. Okay. So here, I'll pull that up while we're going through this, because I definitely neglected to bring that up. Okay. Sorry, I wish I did not have to do this like this, but I want to make sure that I get this up. Of course, now I'm having a hell of a time finding it. Okay, I remember who had it up. Okay, I brought that up. We'll go through that in a second. But before we go through that, Fetterman believes in no cash bail. He doesn't want cash bail. He wants people to get out without bail. He wants people to just be let on the streets. Now, we've seen the result of this in city after city. I warn all of you, any 1, 10, 5, whatever people that watch this, whoever, please share with your friends. It's very important. I've never asked for that before. That's why I made a new YouTube channel, so that none of my other views would cloud this stuff. This is so important to share a video like this. This guy believes that we should let criminals back out on the streets before their trials. Now, I agree that in victimless crimes, there should be maybe low cash bail or no cash bail. Just let them out, right? On whatever you call that. There's a term for it. I forget. But I get it. But violent crimes, no. There needs to be, at the very minimum, cash bail for violent crimes and for crimes that carry victims. He believes that we should let violent criminals literally back out on the streets. Okay, this is not just me saying this. This is not just conjecture. He issued 2 reports. Okay, this is a guy who is sitting on the, whatever you call it, the board that hears as lieutenant governor, the board that hears people that are potentially going to be let out, parole board. He sits on that, and he put out 2 reports stating that all criminals with second-degree murder charges should be given a chance to be let out of prison. All criminals with second-degree murder charges, okay? His stance was that we should give them a chance if they have shown that they've reformed, even though they've murdered somebody, okay? Now, some people, like, all right, there's been plenty of people out there that have assaulted a female and killed them and pled guilty to second-degree murder, okay, because they didn't have enough evidence or something like that, all right? That's insane, okay? I just want you to think about that for a second. That goes way beyond the pale. And maybe that should be in the beginning of this video, really. That is, we'll make a different video talking about this, but it's crazy. Well, maybe we'll read the reports out on video. Fetterman would also like to let out 1,200 criminals that are sentenced to life in prison because they did not take a life. Okay, so basically he said, and he said this on numerous occasions as well. He said that that he believes that because they did not take a life, people that did not commit murder should not be locked up forever. That if they showed that they can reform, they should not be locked up forever. Now, keep in mind, this is including child sex offenders, rapists, men convicted of violent crimes, women convicted of violent crimes. If you maimed and burned somebody, but they did not die, okay, attempted murder, then he wants to let you out of jail. That's crazy. Okay. Now, these people that are convicted to life in prison, almost none of them are convicted of drug charges. Okay. And by the way, drug charges should not carry a life sentence unless you did something really crazy with them. Right. But I mean, almost none of them, like 1% of them. Right. Okay. Look it up. If you don't believe me, look it up. All right. A lot of times you might have seen like, oh yeah, they got arrested for selling weed. Okay, yeah, they did that, but then they also like did that and then hit a cop with their car and then ran away from police and robbed an old lady. And I mean, it's never just they were selling weed, right? There's a lot of different things that go on that they got RICO charges because they were the leader of a gang and that gang killed 8 people. All this crazy stuff. It's never just they were selling a little bit of weed. Guarantee it. Look it up if you don't believe me. The economy, Fetterman's lack of experience, real world experience, okay? And he has no work experience, no real career experience, okay? Means that he lacks basic understanding of small business in the American economy. He wants to ban fracking, okay? And so he's flip-flop on this, but this is what Democrats do. And this is a problem in Pennsylvania. Joe Biden did this right before he won the election, right after he won the election. They say, no, we don't want to ban fracking. I mean, he even approved or supported rather 2 more fracking, locations. But then after that, he comes back out and says, no, we need to move away from that. We need to end fracking for good because we need to focus on more green energy types and this and that. These things are important to the American economy, okay? Pennsylvania lost hundreds of jobs from the closure of that Keystone XL pipeline. We cannot continue to do this to our economy. It's fine to transition to more sustainable energy, and I agree with that. But we have to transition to it, number one. Number two, what is sustainable, right? I mean, he is not pro-nuclear. A lot of Democrats are not a lot of Republicans are not pro-nuclear. But we can't just go, okay, let's stick windmills everywhere. It's not working. It's not working. Why didn't he do that in Braddock if it was so good? So if Fetterman is pro-union, he lacks the fundamental understanding of the American workforce. He doesn't know what being a union worker is, you know, and it's a problem that showed up in many different ways. I mean, when you look at all of these issues and the ones that we'll get to in a second, it showed up over and over again. So he's never had a real career outside politics, and his dad paid for everything up until he was in his 40s, which we know about, really 50s. Fetterman's family has always had the money to send him to private Ivy League colleges and schools. So he's never had to deal with the same things that a lot of us have to deal with. On immigration, he's very pro-sanctuary city and is pro-open borders. He said any Democrat that doesn't agree with this policy, which is sanctuary cities, is pandering to xenophobia. Sanctuary cities ensure the safety and well-being of everybody. Look up what's happening on the border, in the border towns right now. Look up what's happening to American jobs, American towns. Look up the murders and assaults associated with the fentanyl trade, the innocent people that live along the American border. This should not be happening in our country. I mean, these Democrats are freaking out about getting, you know, 100 or 50 or whatever illegal immigrants sent to their towns, but they would have border towns suffer. And John Fetterman's no different. On gun control, he would like to ban all semi-automatic rifles. He would like to eliminate the Senate filibuster to pass gun control legislation. It's very extreme. Understand what that means, all right? Semi-automatic rifles are most rifles, okay? This is a guy who pulled a shotgun on some kid running, jogging, okay? But he wants to take away your rights to own a firearm in this state of Pennsylvania, of central Pennsylvania, okay? Drugs, Fetterman would like to decriminalize all drugs, including heroin and fentanyl. He wants to open injection sites in all across PA. Pennsylvania has the second most overdoses in the US. Right now, there are injection sites in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh where people can go and get a clean needle and they can shoot up. And I understand that it's good that people can get clean needles because we have less HIV and there's other, you know, diseases out there and stuff like that. That being said, it's encouraging behavior. Okay, I get it that libertarians like this idea of, you know, all drugs being, you know, decriminalized or legalized or whatever. It's not a good idea. As a former addict myself, it's not a good idea. Legalize marijuana, fine. Don't decriminalize all drugs. You want to lower sentencing for drug addicts? I'm fine with that. You want to enforce a rehab policy? I'm okay with that. There's things that we can do, and I'll make a video about that. I've thought about this long and hard, but you can't throw somebody into a rehab for 30 days and expect they're going to stay clean, especially if they didn't want to go to the rehab in the first place. LGBTQ issues, Fetterman's openly supportive of trans athletes. He's supportive of transing the kids, you know, and I put that in quotes. I couldn't think of a quicker word for it, quicker word for it, but he supports trans students in changing rooms with kids of the opposite gender. He is as far left as you can be when it comes to this issue. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so last thing I want to go through. All right, I'm just going to read this article for you. All right, now this was written about John Fetterman, and I get it. You can look up stuff, I'm sure, about Dr. Oz or whatever, but this guy has been in government, so we know what he will do. As a native of Philadelphia and a Pennsylvania voter in the November election, I can safely say that John Fetterman is dangerous. His politics scare me. Many of the radical left-wing policies he supports, in many cases implemented, have helped many criminals live better lives. They've also endangered law-abiding Pennsylvanians. Fetterman isn't from Philadelphia, but one would never know it by looking at his political record. Throughout his time in politics, Fetterman has embraced the type of failed policies that have made the once great city of Philadelphia into a crime-ridden, poverty-stricken dystopia. He's not wrong. Now he wants to champion those policies in DC. These radical left-wing policies that have devastated cities throughout the country will do nothing but turn the United States into Philadelphia, which is not good for the US. Crime is soaring under the current Democratic administration, presidential administration. If Fetterman wins the Pennsylvania Senate election, it will exacerbate this problem. He's on the wrong side of legislation history on nearly every social, cultural issue, and has never been that he's ever been involved in. from immigration to criminal justice. Fetterman's position on illegal immigration: the country is experiencing its worst border crisis in history. Illegal immigrants are crossing the border in record numbers. Throughout his political career, Fetterman has supported illegal immigration and sanctuary cities. He has on record saying sanctuary cities make everybody safer, but in reality, this isn't true. All one has to do is ask any of the number of victims of violent crimes in sanctuary cities how safe they feel. There was a girl that was shot to death while walking with her father, for example, in San Francisco. An illegal immigrant that had been caught numerous times, but was in a sanctuary city, so he never got arrested for coming over the border illegally. All right, so we get past that, and here was the big thing I wanted to talk about. This, I mean, you can look up this article. It's an important one, but this is the big one. So goes through his specific art. All right, so consider Fetterman's positions on criminal justice reforms. Many of the criminal problems plaguing Philadelphia stem from policies of Soros-funded radical left-wing District Attorney Larry Krasner in his office has come under fire recently for embracing policies that fail to prosecute criminals and releasing many prisoners from jail. This is correlated with a 78% increase in homicides since Krasner was elected. As I mentioned earlier, and it bears repeating, these are all the same policies that Fetterman champions. He's an avid enthusiast of releasing prisoners from jail. In October 2020, while speaking to the panel about criminal justice, Fetterman commented about emptying the prisons by over 30%. And even more disturbing, he stated he doesn't think releasing this many people will significantly affect crime. I was on a panel with Secretary Wetzel earlier. This is what, quote from Fetterman, before the pandemic hit, and he said something remarkable that I agree with. Fetterman said, he said we could reduce our prison population by a third and not make anyone less safe in Pennsylvania. That's a profound statement. Okay. Moreover, Fetterman recommended to the governor, Tom Wolf, that 13 people convicted of murder should have their prison terms commuted. Fetterman's history shows that he was more concerned with releasing criminals than protecting people. So 13 murderers, okay, were recommended to be let off. Now, there's specific examples too, and that's what I was trying to find, because the specific examples are absurd. And I think that when you will look at someone like John Fetterman, it doesn't take, go look up some of the people that he had released and then he wants released. Okay, some of these people are like near serial murders. Okay, they're not unviolent people. Okay, so all right, I'm going to close this by saying this. Okay, I can't tell you to vote for. All right, I can't tell you to vote for. And I know I've rambled on about this stuff and whatnot. I think that I wanted to come to some bias, but I come out of this video feeling very certain that I've made the case that John Fetterman is not the right candidate for this state. Okay, now I can't tell you how to vote. All I can do is tell you to consider all of these things. Now you might look at it and you might say, yeah, well, I'm really, really pro LGBTQ, this and that. Okay, fine, I get it. You might say I'm really pro drug. I want gun control. Okay, I need you to think about right now the preponderance of issues and what really will be up in the next couple of years for this country. Okay, what's important? Crime is on the rise significantly. That's important. Okay, that will affect families directly. Young children will be killed by policies enacted by someone like John Fetterman. That is a fact. Okay, that is a fact. The economy is suffering because of policies of the Biden administration and policies this country is supporting. This country is supporting destroying itself right now. And it's awful to see. But more government control is not the answer. And that's what Fetterman would like to bring. Okay. Illegal immigration is ripping this country apart as well. And Fetterman would like to see that, would like to see the border wide open so it affects a city near you, maybe your own. Okay. So I just to ask you to consider, please, with me for a second. Okay. Don't vote down ballot Republican if you don't want to, but please don't vote for John Fetterman. Please. I just want to remind you again that Dr. Oz, while he might not be the perfect candidate, there's a lot of things I don't like about him. I just want to remind you that this is a man who has accomplished everything that he set out to do. And I went during this video from being a guy who was not a Dr. Oz fan, who thought that was the second worst decision that we could make for the state, to becoming a person that at least appreciates what Dr. Oz has to offer us. So I ask you again for the last time, okay, please think about it. Think about your vote. Think about how much it matters. Think about sharing this video as well to someone that you know that might be supportive of John Fetterman or might be unsure about Dr. Oz. Share it with every Republican. My biggest concern is that conservatives and Republicans are not excited for Dr. Oz, and so they won't come out to vote. We have to. This could be the most important. Democrats say this all the time, so I hate saying it, but this could be the most important election of our time. So please like, subscribe, and please share this. Thank you.